All right, welcome in, hunters, the switch axe. Now, I main switch axe in Worlds for probably like 200 hours. We did a recent playthrough, and I've been maining it in Wilds, and there's some good changes, does some big damage. There's a lot of things that it doesn't tell you in like the weapon controls. There's some things that like I guarantee you're going to learn some stuff from this video. I pretty much have played switch axe exclusively on Wild so far in probably like 60 hours. So, you know, I'm not one of those guys that jumps around weapons. I will be doing other guides, but I want to give you some tips and tricks how to really min-max your damage with switch axe, best skills to put on your weapon and armor, best opener, how to maximize different little things you can do here and there, how to utilize wounds. There's a combo while you're doing your wound attack, because I bet most of you probably have only done the wounds with the axe mode or the sword mode, and there is a way to start hitting a wound with axe, switch into sword, and then finish with full release and elemental discharge, which is kind of crazy. The game doesn't tell you that. So just stuff like that. So we're going to get into it right now. So first thing is first, go into your weapon controls. Go to switch axe. Go to the third tab. We're going to talk about this real quick so you can understand how it works. All right. There's sword mode and axe mode. So basically, if you press R2, you will go to sword mode. You press R2 again, you go to axe. You'll be switching between, you'll be morphing in between both of these a lot. So basically, while you're in axe mode and you're attacking with the axe, you will build your switch gauge. You see that yellow bar? Now it's full. If I go to sword mode, I will build the amp gauge. You see the red bar is now starting to go, and the yellow bar is decreasing. So if I go back to axe mode, you can see the yellow bar increases. I go back, I'm getting the red up. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about the best combos, the best way to fill those gauges, but axe mode increases your switch, which is the yellow, and amp gauge is sword. That's how you build that. So you can go and do full release slash, stuff like that, do extra damage when you're in the amp state. And then there's also the power axe mode, okay? So we just talked about the switch mode. You can only go into sword mode. You see that little like weight bar, 30% in. You can only go into sword mode when you have that much. Now, let me exhaust this real quick. Okay, so now I'm below, right? If I press R2 from axe mode, you see how I reload? It does an animation to reload to give you more switch gauge. You want to avoid that. You never want to be in a situation where it's going to happen, but if you're not paying attention and you don't have enough switch gauge to go into sword, you press R2 to morph, you're going to sit there and reload and the monster's just going to bop you, all right? So try to avoid that. Make sure you're keeping your eye on your gauge and you're doing the right combos to fill that before you morph. So outside of that, there's power axe mode. This will increase your damage while in axe mode and increases the rate in which the switch gauge fills while attacking. Now, to get power axe mode, usually you got to do a heavy slam. All right, so if you go wild swing into heavy slam, do you see how we got the power axe mode? So heavy slam seems to be what's needed to get into power axe mode. And I don't know how long it lasts, but basically now, let me go into sword mode and wipe the gauge down. Now, if I go back into axe mode, you see how fast it goes up even faster now. It's completely full. Completely full. So you want to make sure that, and now if you're opening with a monster, always open with the sneak attack. I'll talk about it at the end, all right? But you always want to go up behind the monster, press circle, you do a sneak attack. When you do that, you'll open with the heavy slam and automatically get power axe mode right out of the gate. You always want to do that. And if you're hunting with other people, be like, hey, I'm a switch axe main. Screw you. I'm getting the sneak attack so I can get my amp gauge faster. Don't let them bully you, all right? Switch axe is the best, all right? So that's how you get power axe mode. You gotta, you can't just triangle into it, all right? Like if you just do triangle, you're gonna do the spiral burst slash. You have to wild swing twice in the heavy slam. Boom, there it is. Okay, the amp gauge. Now the amp gauge, like I said, we fill it in sword mode. We're gonna talk about the best way, you know, the best combos to fill it versus other combos that don't fill it as much. But basically, when you're in an amp state, you're gonna do extra like exhaust damage from your switch axe or your sword mode being amped up, which I will show you real quick. Okay, so we're almost full. You see how right now we're not doing extra damage? Now we're amped up. Do you see how it's doing extra little like flames and explosions? When you're in an amp state, you do extra damage like that. So that is one benefit of being in amped mode. You're just gonna double your damage, if not triple. Do you see how the sword is like on fire? It's all hot and bothered and ready to smash some monster bus. Hell yeah. So amp gauge is good for that, okay? Like just look at the extra damage coming off. It's crazy. So yeah, we just talked about that. All right, you get the small explosions. And then the Phial type. So each weapon is gonna have a different Phial type. So yeah, while you're in sword mode, your Phial type. While you're in sword mode, you're using your Phial. So with me right now, I have the Eisengeist Gormagala. My Phial type, actually, and this is power. So that gives me more attack. Now, if I go to say my Sakabami, I have an element Phial. Now that does ice. So I'm doing ice damage while I'm in sword mode. So then if you have a, I've used paralysis, right? While you're in sword mode, you're doing paralysis and eventually you will paralyze the monster. So pretty much sword mode is what activates the Phials. And as far as the weapon properties, that's all you need to know. So we're going to go into some combos here. Your basic combos, what to use, what not to use. I will say the axe mode is more agile. You can run around a lot more when you're in axe mode. Okay, you go into sword mode. See how much slower I move now? I'm kind of just like, oh, right? Keep that in mind. There are gap closers and stuff. So while we're in axe mode, you got your basic wild swing. Just keep pressing circle. You'll do this forever. Okay? This is not optimal. This is not decent damage. Okay? It'll just literally go forever until your stamina runs out. But if you go twice into triangle, that's heavy slam. Pretty heavy hit to the enemy, and it fills that power axe. So now when you attack with the axe, you're gaining more switch gauge. So you want to make sure that when that power icon on the bottom left is not full, you 2 wild swings into heavy slam. Boom, charge it up, you're ready to go. Okay, you want to make sure you always have that. Now outside of that, we can press R2 to do a morph sweep. Huge combo here, straight into sword mode. Now that does some pretty good damage. I do like to use this personally because it's pretty good. So again, we'll go back to wild swing and then R2. And you're in sword mode. And then you can keep going from there. Build your amp gauge. Now let's go back into axe mode. Now if you are like back here, you can press forward and circle and you'll do like a forward overhead slash. You can gain a good amount of ground, as you can see there. Now, if you go up in triangle, it's more just like a thrust. You don't cover that much ground. So up in circle, you're going to go pretty far. Now, usually focus mode, if you go into focus mode with L2 and hold it and then press up in circle, it lunges you like another like 5 feet forward. So if you really need to close the gap, go into focus mode and do it. Like, see like how far we went versus if I just do it from here, I don't even reach. So focus mode will allow you to go a little bit further. Now on top of that, an easy way to do the fade slash, you can combo into fade slash, right? You can basically hit the monster and roll back. Now you have to hit down and circle, but if you're just normal right now, you press down and circle, you're just going to turn around and do a forward overhead slash. So, and also it won't go from wild swing, because if you press down and circle, you're just going to keep wild swinging. So to really do this, you have to be in your triangle combo, or you can hold L2 for focus mode and then you press down and circle. So like if you're like swinging wild swing, you can go into focus mode and then do it. Up to you, but that's a good way to, like, if he's gonna like do, like, if like you're fighting like a Yan Cuckoo bird and he's like pecking at you, you can just hit him with a quick bop and get out of there. So the biggest way I'll get rid of my switch gauge real quick. All right, so we don't have like any switch gauge. Now, if you watch, the best way to charge this is your triangle combo. You want the spiral burst. Ready? Spiral burst slash. Look how much. It pretty much went up half. All right? That is your best bet at charging your switch gauge. If I just do wild swing, as you can see, it's just like barely going up. All right? Going to heavy slam gives a good chunk. But if I go triangle, that combo is your best bet. Always make sure you're doing your triangle combo for the most beneficial way to get your switch axe charged the fastest. You want spiral burst slash. You can also combo spiral burst slash. Like if we go into sword mode and we just swing here, I can morph, ready, and then hit triangle, spiral burst slash. So if you're running out of switch gauge, right, we're attacking, we're going to sword mode, we're amping up. As you can see, we're losing our switch gauge, right? We're just doing combos. It's getting low. All right, cool. I'm going to morph real quick and then press triangle. It's full. It's full. So when you go to sword mode and you're either building your amp gauge or you see your switches going down, morph out to axe mode, triangle, do the burst slash, get it back, and then switch right back to sword. That's going to be huge for your uptime with sword mode, because you're going to want to stay in sword mode for the pretty much all the time. All right, that's where you're going to want to be. So if you're attacking, you can actually, it doesn't really work in axe mode unless you're holding focus, but it doesn't really strafe. When you're in sword mode, you can like press triangle and hold right and just keep sidestepping while you're slashing, or you can press left, hold left, and you'll kind of crab walk to the side, or you can hold down and you can kind of walk backwards, or you can hold forward and you can, you know, make your way forward. Now, if I do circle, it doesn't really work. So keep that in mind, all right? That if you need to like position, kind of like scoot around the front of the monster or the side, go into your sword mode and do triangle, and you can like crab walk around him, all right? And then same thing with that, we talked about the fade slash like that. Like if you're up front, you're attacking a monster and he's about to do something, fade slash out of there, down and circle. All right, so just to recap that part. Now I know we haven't gotten at like the big damage, the big combos yet. I just want to get back, show you a combo. We've got no switch gauge. Besides the opener doing a sneak attack and grabbing that, you're going to want to come in, you're going to open, you're going to wild swing into the heavy slam, okay? Go into sword mode, do some bops, morph, triangle, get that gauge up there, morph again, go into it, and then pretty much now we're full. We can do a dim sum, and then we can do full release slash, and you got big damage. Look at that, 3,700 damage. Now, I told you while you're in axe mode, the triangle combo gives you the most switch gauge. When you're in sword mode, to gain the most amp gauge, you want to do the circle combo. You want to do Heaven Ward Flurry. That will give you the most amp gauge, the circle combo. So in axe mode, it's the triangle combo to get the most switch gauge, and in sword mode, circle gives you the most amp gauge. So keep that in mind when you're switching between the modes, okay? Like right now, we don't have it. So if I do the circle combo, ready? Just about half. But if I just do triangle in a circle, okay, well, we lost the morph, but it only gives ticks. So when you finish, you do that jumping like circle combo, that's going to give you the most amp gauge. All right, let's talk about counters. Now, I made a video about counters. I showed you how to practice. Basically, you're going to come into here and you're going to put it on, you're going to put it on smash mode. And now you can see that it will drop that. Now, basically, this is just going to come down to practice and monster knowledge. Once you really learn the monster's attacks, the timing, how long they take to, like when Arkveld like throws his chains. Switch Axe now has an offset counter and a rising slash counter. So you got two counters. You got one for axe and one for sword. It's going to come down to big practice. a ton of practice. So while you're in axe mode, if you press triangle circle at the same time, offset rising slash. Okay? Now, this will knock an enemy and give you an opening to attack. And after you successfully land this, you can hold forward and mash triangle to do a combo. You can press forward and circle to do a circle combo, or you can press forward and hit R2 to go into a morph combo. You have 3 options here. Now, while you're pressing forward towards the monsters, you will use your grapple and pull yourself towards the monster. It doesn't always go all the way to the monster. If they go really far from you, after not like Arkveld usually will go further, then you might have to do an extra roll to get in there. But I will show you right now. Okay, ready? Offset, boom. Now, if I press up forward and triangle, heavy slam, which will fill your power gauge back up. Okay, so that's an option. Right now we'll do it with circle. Get in there. I think they're the same. Are they the same? Yeah. So triangle or circle does heavy slam. They're both the same. But do you see how I grapple? Let me try it without holding forward and see if it still grapples. Yeah. So you don't have to press forward, okay? When you get a successful offset, and the good thing about landing an offset is it really bumps up your switch gauge while you're in axe mode. If you're in sword mode, we have the rising counter. Triangle and R2. Counter rising slash. You have to time this just right. And basically, you get hyper armor while this happens, and you withstand the enemy's attack, and then you counter. It's really good. It comes down to a lot of practice, a lot of timing. Like, ready? Here we go. Boom. And then follow up with triangle. Easy. We do it again. We'll do circle this time. The same attack, okay? Now, I believe with this, you can also morph back. I don't think you'll want to do that. Or I press the wrong button. Try a morph. See if you can morph out of this. No, you cannot morph out of that. So, but that builds your amp gauge a lot. When you do a successful counter, whether in axe or sword mode, it really gives you a big boost to your gauges. So there is that. Now let's talk about full release slash. You press R2 triangle circle at the same time. You can do it just out of nowhere. This is your big damage. Big, flashy, boom, crazy. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love full release slash. Now, you can do this out of a dim sum. I call dim sum the elemental discharge, which we're going to have to get the gauge back up here. Now, if I go do a full release slash right now, the amp gauge is not full, so it won't do a full charge. Do you see how short it is? You're going to do like 1 hit of damage. Like, let me go back in. Watch. You're not going to do any damage. Ready? It's going to do a short one. Now I have an in-game weapon, so, you know, it's going to be... But that's not a lot of damage, okay? Like, if we actually go back into sword mode here, get the gauge full, now we'll do a full release slash, okay? Ready? Watch how much damage we do, because it charges, all right? Boom! Look at all that damage. So... You only want to do full release slash while you have your amp gauge full. That is going to be your biggest damage. All right. Now also, if you knock the monster and he's down, you can do elemental discharge. So do this, blast him, and then hold R2 and go right into a full release slash. This is going to be your bread and butter. Now an elemental discharge is while you're in sword mode. Okay? While you're in sword mode, if you press triangle and circle at the same time and then just start mashing triangle, you go blah, and then boom, blow your load. All right? Now, there is a way to end that early. I have to get the amp gauge back real quick. All right, if you start elemental discharge and you start mashing triangle, you can then press down on the left stick and cancel it early. Because as you saw before, it had a pretty long build-up. So now if we get into it, I hold down. It's kind of hard to get. Sometimes if you just press down, it doesn't work. You can start tapping triangle and then press down and triangle at the same time. Sometimes it'll explode early, and sometimes it'll just pull it back. I haven't really gotten this down, but I usually never end it early. Like once I go into that, I make sure once the monster is knocked and he's on his side, I go in and I elemental discharge the full thing straight into a full release slash. You have time to get that combo off, and then you can go back to your normal combos, because by then, so basically do this. See how it says finishing discharge? I stopped pressing triangle and I pressed down and triangle at the same time, and it blew the load early versus that long buildup. You can do it like if you know the monster's getting up and you're like, oh shit, I want to get my full release slash off. You can kind of end that early and then go into it. Now I watched a lot of speedrunners and I was a little confused because I was like, I can't get my elemental discharge to end as fast as they do. Like they immediately have elemental discharge canceled and do an explosion. So what I found out was when you go to attack a wound, if you're in sword mode, I wasn't paying attention on their videos. This is where the quick release, like look how quick, boom, boom. That's what I was seeing on these speedrunner videos. I was like, how are they canceling elemental discharges as soon as they step the sword and like boom, boom. And I was like, I can only get like 1, 2, 3 ticks and then pull it back. So I found out that only happens in the wound. So if you see really good players doing that, it's a wound attack, all right? I was sitting here like, what am I missing? And then I was like, idiot, it's a fucking wound attack. That's just the animation it does. Okay, another really good thing about the full release slash, when you charge full release slash, as soon as you're like, let me get it back and I'll show you. So when full release slash, while you're charging it, you can get knocked, you can get hit, okay? But as soon as you release it and you start spinning and attacking, you are invincible. You cannot be staggered. You will finish the combo no matter what. But if you get hit before that, you're screwed. So while it's charging right now, you are vulnerable. Right now, you're good. You cannot be interrupted. Okay, so keep that in mind. While it's charging your full release, you can get knocked, you can get hit, you can get canceled out of it. But as soon as you start going, invincible. You can't be touched. You finish the combo. So keep that in mind. All right, another thing I forgot to add about elemental discharge, you can do it just from the ground, right? Or you can also stop, like if a monster flies away, you can stop tapping triangle and you'll just pull it back. But if your amp, this only happens when your amp gauge is full, okay? When your amp gauge is full, you can, instead of pressing triangle circle and then tapping triangle, you can just hold it until you latch onto the monster and then spam triangle. This is how you mount a monster. Now this is fun. It's fun to just ride a monster and blast them. But when you get knocked back, you have a lot of downtime. It's still fun, right? Like if you know a monster's about to run at you, if you go into and you hold it and they hit you while you're holding it, you will just immediately mount them and just blast wherever you mount them. Okay? But like I'll get it back here and show you. Okay, so now my sword isn't full. If I go and hold triangle circle, I don't mount the monster. You can only mount when the amp gauge is full, but it's a good way if they're coming at you, they're about to run, you can, like, instead of tapping the triangle to just start blasting them, you hold it, jam, you'll get up and you'll just mount them and blast them. Also, the good thing is when you're mounted, you have like hyper armor, and you won't take, like if the monster's bucking or moving around or doing an attack, you either won't take damage or will take very little damage. So it's kind of cool. So there's some ledge attacks, all right? If you roll off a ledge, you will jump. You can do like jumping slashes, whatever. You can morph, right? So elemental discharge, let's get our gauge back up here. If you have a full amp gauge, you can jump from a ledge and grab onto a monster with elemental discharge. So we're in sword mode. We're going to roll, jump off the ledge, and then hit triangle circle and hold it, and you will just automatically grab onto the monster. So it's the same thing like when you're from the ground. You have to have that amp gauge. You can roll off a ledge, which initiates the jump, and then just full on mid-air grab onto them, which is pretty cool. Okay, so if like someone's, you know, not going to happen a lot, but it's there if you want to do it. Let's talk about focus mode. Now with focus mode, you press L2 and you can either hit the wound in axe mode or hit the wound in sword mode. Both are different, and like I said at the beginning of the video, you can actually morph mid combo. So we're going to show the axe right now. You hit a wound, it's basically just some heavy attacks. You press R1, you just end with a heavy slam. It gives you the power gauge, and you're good to go. Pretty much will fill your switch gauge. Now, if we go into sword mode, can I have a wound? All right, we got a wound. Now, if we do it in sword mode, bigger damage, and you do an elemental discharge at the end. All right. Now, on top of that, get my switch gauge back up. Now, when we're in sword mode, after you do the wound in sword mode, you can hold R2. Ready? After we do elemental discharge, hold R2 right now, go right into a full release slash. And if your amp gauge is full, that is huge damage, 2,189. So you can get in there, hit the wound, elemental discharge from the end of that wound attack. It automatically does that. Hold R2 and go right into your best damage dealer. Doing that in sword mode, hitting the wounds, is so satisfying. It's literally huge amounts of damage. It feels good to nail on a monster. You're gonna break wounds. Like if they already had a wound and you do that, like if you're hitting a wound and they have another wound that's pretty close by, all that explosion usually will break the other wound, and then they'll get staggered again, and then you can roll forward and then do another elemental discharge into full release and just completely devastate the monsters. You can just, it's pretty crazy. But on top of that, let's get another wound going. All right, now, if I start the wound in axe mode and about the second hit I press R2, you will switch to sword mode while doing the wound attack. Ready? 1, 2, R2. I'm in sword mode and I finish with the elemental discharge instead of the heavy slam. Kind of crazy, right? Kind of crazy. Now let's go into sword mode. All right, I'm going to start the wound attack. Second hit, I'm going to press R2. Just press it once. Ready? R2. Switch to axe mode. Finish with the heavy slam. A lot of people don't know you can do that. So if you are like, oh shit, I wanted to do the wound in the sword mode to get elemental discharge. If you start it, you can second hit, just press R2. Boom. Switches, elemental discharge. If your amp gauge is full release slash. So it's got its use cases, but that's a cool little feature that not a lot of people know about, and it's pretty big. Because there's times where I'm like, oh shit, I should have been in sword mode. And I just found this out. I was like, wait, I can do that? So kind of a big tip there. So if we go on to Seikret here, we've got a dismount attack. If you have something, you can mount a lot, right? If you just go and like do a jumping slash, usually you'll mount. There's a skill which like lets you mount easier. But you also have a triangle circle dismount attack that I usually just go for the jump. I don't think I ever use the dismount attack, which is this triangle circle, right? Kind of like a heavy slam. I usually, because I have on my gear right now, I have like, it's easier to mount. So what I do is I usually, if I can't sneak attack, I run up and I'll do that and usually mount the monster, start stabbing them and do your finisher, you know what I mean? Once you make the wound. But that is an option. And then one other thing, if you're like, you got a hill, you got a slope, you can run down the slope. Once you start sliding, you can press triangle, right? You can do a jumping sweep, you can press circle, or if you're sliding, you can press R2 and do a morph attack, right? Go right into sword mode. So if a monster's on at the bottom of an incline, just remember that you can do that. And then that's pretty much how to play Switch Axe. We'll go over real quick the best combos, best way to open, stuff like that real quick, and then we'll get you out of here. Oh, we'll also go over best skills real quick. Let's go over the skills right now. So the best skills for Switch Axe, you're gonna want Power Prolonger, which I actually don't have on this build. You're also gonna want Rapid Morph, which I don't have on this build. Wow. I have other things, but let me go find the... Okay, here's Rapid Morph. All right, Rapid Morph is going to be, if you're making a set, you're going to want Rapid Morph. So basically, Level 3, speed plus 30% and morph attack damage plus 20%. Gonna be absolutely massive, okay? It increases the switch speed and power for switch axes, okay? So when you morph and you switch, it increases how fast you switch, and it does more damage. It's pretty big. So you're gonna want rapid morph, and here is power prolonger. Another one you're gonna wanna make sure you have on your build. So basically allows long swords, dual blades, insect blades, switch axes, and charge blades to stay powered up longer. At level 3, greatly boost the duration weapons are powered up. So when you reach amp state, when you're gonna be in amp state a long time. You'll be able to get like 5, 6, 7 full release combos, depending on how many hits you can get in on the monster. But this is huge because it lets your amp state just stay, and you can, when you're in sword mode and you're attacking, you get that extra damage when you're in amp mode, and then full release slash, full release slash, full release slash. And then the only other one you're really going to want to use is focus. I believe it's on this one. Yeah. So focus, all right, increases the fill rate for weapons with gauges and the charge rate for weapons with charge attacks. So increases gauge fill rate and reduces charge times by 15%. Other notable mentions that you probably want to get are maximum might if you're running element on your weapon, or even not. Affinity is basically your crit damage, okay? 30% affinity is pretty big, all right? And then part breaker, basically when you're doing, destroying a wound with focus strike, increase part damage and damage dealt by 30%, which, as you know, that focus mode sword attack, when you're in the amp gauge, you're doing all those hits with the sword, and you're not only are you getting the sword hits, you're also getting the exhaust explosion hit off of the sword, so it's twice per hit, plus the elemental discharge. This will amplify that like crazy. I've had hits on like Gore Magala for like, on the explosion part of elemental discharge for like 1,120 some damage, and it's not even fully maxed out, and I don't have optimal gear, so you can do some really, really, really big damage combos with that. All right, so let's recap. Best combo while you're in axe mode: triangle, 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 triangle. Spiral burst slash is what you want to get your switch gauge to charge the fastest. Sword mode, charge it the fastest. Circle, circle 3 times. Boom, that'll charge your amp gauge. So you're gonna want to come in, you want to heavy slam, right? Get into that, switch, do the amp gauge. Now you can also triangle. I didn't go over this with sword. You can triangle, triangle, circle, circle, triangle, triangle, circle, circle, to kind of keep that going. It doesn't gain a lot of amp gauge, but it is a thing. All right, and then we'll go into this, we'll blast them, come off of that, go into full release. We'll have some downtime. You can come off of a offset rising slash off of this if the monster's about to hit you. We'll go back in with this. Cool, we got the combo. We're back into this. We can hit him with a full release slash again. Sick. Come out of it with triangle. Get our gauge back. Hit him with a heavy slam. Get the power gauge back. Just messing around with it. Click back to axe mode. Hit that real quick. Switch back. Go into the circle combo. Get the amp gauge. Let's break a wound with this. Look at all that damage, right? And then we'll end it with a full release slash. Just mess around with the combos. You know what I mean? Look at your gauges, mess around with the combos. But, I mean, 100 hits, 5,600 damage. And it goes quick. It goes quick. And like I said, the best way to open is to sneak attack a monster. Automatic, you'll get like 300 damage, and you'll also automatically fill your power gauge. And that's pretty much it. A little lengthy of a guide, but I really wanted to go, into a lot of detail, kind of really make sure I hit things and not just like go over it, show it, and then move on. Like I show it a few times, you know what I mean? But anyway, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Subscribe, come back, check out other videos, and I will see you on the next one.